Awesome. So usually this begins with, so Peggy, how are the turtles doing this week? But Peggy's not here, so instead we'll just make it Snakes and Substances Part 3, the third rendition of This Week on Herp Talk Radio, with Eric Burke and Justin Smith. Eric Burke of Morelia Python Radio and EB Morelia. Justin Smith, Palmetto Coast Exotics, and the Herpetoculture Network, the Herpetoculture Podcast, the magazine. You got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, too much. Not as much as I had, so it's not as brutal as it used to be.
So how's everybody doing tonight?
Good. Yeah. Good.
Good.
I'm doing good. Back in the rhythm, putting out podcasts and stuff. Just like
you got like 2 or 3 of them out today. I think I listened to.
Hit the ground running.
Heck yeah.
Do it.
Well, Eric, will you tell us a little bit about you? I know I did a little bit of an introduction, but maybe a little something for people who don't know you.
Yeah, sure. Wow, I've never answered how I got into reptiles and this whole thing.
Oh man, really, take your time, then. You deserve it. You deserve it.
I guess I've always been into snakes ever since I was a kid. Going and catching snakes with my dad out in the woods type of deal. And then I think I had a green anole, and then I saw a Burmese python hatching out of an egg, and that was kind of it for me with pythons. And I think I was 8 years old and I had a Burmese python. It's probably not the probably not the most responsible thing, but that was the 80s, so it's a different time.
It was a lawless wasteland back then.
Yeah. And I was into it probably up until I was 15, and then I kind of got out of it until I got back in like 1998, I think it was, somewhere in that range. And the reptile world had completely changed. When I was first into it, it was more about like just keeping a species, not really anybody talking about breeding or anything like that. It was more about keeping and, just trying to get more and more, I guess, exotic or more difficult species to keep in captivity. And then I sort of got into the whole breeding side of things. Got back into pythons. Somehow that led me to carpet pythons. And I don't know what it is about that group of snakes, but just my favorite. I can never see myself without a carpet python. I've been through, I've worked with 37 different species of pythons, and they're the only ones that have stayed through all of those ins and outs of different species. Most of them usually end up at Owen's house when I find out that they're not for me. I thought I wanted to do the whole breeding thing for a long time. When I was getting back into it, it was kind of like the way the world, everybody was breeding, and to be anybody, you had to be a breeder and you had to breed these rare stuff. And it seems like the reptile world has kind of changed, and I've kind of changed. I've done a lot more field herping. I've been to Australia 3 times, all over out in the West, which is totally different than what I'm used to on the East Coast. And it just changed my whole perspective of keeping and trying to figure out these animals that we keep. And so I recently went from like 400 snakes down to like 100 snakes.
If that. Lord, is that how many you were at before you downsized?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I had no idea either, and I listen regularly. So
yeah, I don't really talk about my stuff all too much, but yeah, I just it just got overwhelming. It kind of took the fun out of it. Rob Stone's a good friend of mine. If you listen to the show, you know him. He was telling me years before, he's like, dude, this isn't you. This isn't what it's about. But I just felt like I had to sort of do that in order to be legitimate, I guess, And that same time I was doing the podcast. We started in 2011, and here we are, 2023, still going strong. People told me that you couldn't do a carpet python podcast. I disagree. um, and
You've done it for like 12 years now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we talk on other stuff too, pythons and different stuff like that. But we don't really focus too much on like the mainstream world of pythons, I guess, if you will. Like, we don't really talk about ball pythons, not because I don't like them, just because there's a lot of podcasts out there that kind of do it, and they're going to do it much better than I can do it. So yeah, and I've come full circle back around again to where I'm just into, I'm like really into the behavior of snakes and watching the behavior, and like really trying to figure them out, and that's where I'm at now. So yeah, that's kind of what my whole gig. So
Awesome. Well, Justin.
So I got my first corn snake last week. I've read some books. I've watched some YouTube videos, and I mean, if there's anything you want to know about corn snakes, I'm the guy now. You know. No, kind of like Eric. I mean, I was a military kid, so we moved around a lot, and I think as a result, it sort of makes you much more sort of self-sufficient, independent. And so when we moved, like, herps was always kind of the thing I could take with me in a sense. Really liked dinosaurs as a kid, and then realized that my chances of finding those were slim. So I kind of found the next best thing, which was reptiles. And I think my first snake was I think a red-bellied Steraria that I don't know where I found it, or I think my dad used to hunt really regularly, and so he'd bring home stuff every now and then. And I think there was this little Steraria, and I ended up cooking it because I left it on like a table or desk or something in my room in the sunlight, and it was just extra crispy when I came home one day. Then I had some rough green snakes, which really, I think, really amped up sort of my interest in stuff and things, because those were just a blast to have. You know, I'd go in the backyard. We had this like sort of field in the backyard at the time. I'd go and catch grasshoppers and throw them in there and watch them, you know, hunt them down. And it was always around. It was always something I had. Pretty much ever since then, I've always had something in terms of like what I was keeping. Even when we lived in Hawaii, you know, you can't have snakes there, but you know, there was Jackson's chameleons that people would sell, and so we ended up somehow with a pair of those. So I had those for a bit. Once we were back, sort of continental U.S., started breeding corns with my dad, and just still always had sort of stuff to some degree. Kind of took a break for about a year or so, circa 2013 or 14. Took like a year off and just had some tarantulas and some other stuff, and then got back into it, and in 2016 started Palmetto Coast Exotics. Mostly because you know, at that point it was like, I'm an adult, I can do whatever I want now. Like, I'm not limited. I have a job. I have disposable income, and started breeding cresteds. Just decided like I wanted to, like, I'd always been keeping stuff. I'd bred some stuff with my dad when I was a kid here and there, but nothing on like a serious level. That was pretty much me enjoying it and him doing all the work. And it was come 2016. I was like, I want to make it a business of sorts, or a side gig kind of thing, and take that sort of next step, and did cresteds for a few years, and then decided that I wanted to go back to snakes, because that was always sort of the main love for herp rise. And it's been a slippery slope ever since. So just got all kinds of stuff. But carpets have also been a big part of my thing, or at least they were sort of earlier on. I think I got into those before I even had a ball python, and so that always sort of, I think that's what sort of diverted me from the ball python thing, is like having carpets and then having a ball. It was kind of like, the carpets are just more enjoyable to me. I just enjoyed them more, and so that segued into, you know, chondros and some other stuff. So I don't have any carpets currently, but I do have chondros still. And now I've just, like everyone else, I've just gone full force into colubrids and sold my soul to the colubrid side of things.
Yeah, I think I'm getting there too. I haven't actually owned any Morelia. And my daughter's name is Morelia. So
Really?
Really?
yeah, yeah, I love the snakes. I've listened to your show, Eric, since 2013, 2014. I don't
Oh
know.
wow.
I called
Okay.
you way back in the early days. Like
Okay.
you were still on Blog Talk Radio, you
Oh
know.
geez.
I remember calling into the phone number to
Yeah.
listen. So
Oh wow.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and then I fell out. I had womas, I had a few Australian things, and then I fell out. I got married, divorced, that sort of thing, and was out for 4 or 5 years, and now I'm coming back. So got a
Nice.
couple of ball pythons because I want to breed them. I want to check
Nice.
those off of my list.
Yeah.
Some Picturophis locality to here anyway, pits,
Nice.
which is pretty cool. And then I just picked up a corn snake from Twyla, who I
Nice.
had on our show.
Yeah.
So
I actually I me and Chris were supposed to do a Corn Stars episode this week, and the two people we had kind of, first through third string that we were like on our, okay, if they can't do it, we're gonna hit up them and then them, and the first two sort of fell out. And so after listening to that episode with her, I hit her up and see if we could get her on at some point, because she's got some really nice stuff.
yeah, she does.
So.
And I warned her because this show was actually planned at the same time as that show was.
Mhm.
So I warned her. I was like, I'm having him on. He runs Corn Stars, the podcast, and then she found the lady you had on Corn Stars, Sarah, and I bought that corn snake, and she's like, yeah, I need to do some more deep dive on the Sarah stuff, and I'm like, I just listened to that, so
yeah, Sarah's awesome.
whoa.
I would have Sarah on every episode if we could. She's fun to talk to. She knows a ton.
Yeah, she seems to know her stuff. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you got rats, Justin.
I did just get rats. I'm a rat breeder now. I had them for 2 days. I'm a rat breeder. Yeah. So I had a local buddy who was he's Angelo Corsi at Hilton Head Exotics. So he's been doing ball pythons pretty hardcore for many years now, and he's kind of, I think, at a point where he's wanting to change it up and move on to something else, and he wants to get into chondros, and so he messaged my other buddy locally who just moved down here from Minnesota, Justin Olson. And he's like, hey man, you know anybody that would want some rats? And Justin, he was like, oh, other Justin in Beaufort probably might. And so Angelo messaged me, and I was like, how many are you talking about? And he made it sound like it was like 25 and some racks, no big deal. And it was supposed to be 4 racks. He had 3 because he moved today actually to like the outskirts of town. And I, without really seeing the racks and knowing how big they were, like what I was getting myself into, I was like, yeah, I'll take them. And I traded in one of my male Beox that I deemed sort of non-essential to future projects, and got there, and it's like 50 rats, and the racks were big. And I was like, I can totally fit those in the bed of my dad's truck. And how I made it the 45-minute drive home without losing those things I was white knuckling it the entire way back. And everything made it back fine. And I'm currently trying to sort of figure out, because I've been doing mice for a few years now, so I've got them pretty figured out in terms of like scheduling and when I need to top them off and when they need attention and stuff. And so rats, like I'm over there on my way to work, I'm over there on my way home from work, like checking to make sure they got food, because they're eating way more than the mice are. I've already figured that out. Like I'm going to be burning through so much more food than I was before. Because it also doesn't help that the rats that I got are like the size of kittens, basically. Like I forgot how freaking big rats are.
Yeah.
And so I see these things and I was like, good Lord, like they're heavy. Like if I pick them up by the tail to like move them into a bin and they like grab the edge of another bin, like they actually are kind of hard to like pull off and like move it. I'm not used to it. So it's a big big change from what I've been used to, but one of the females already dropped a litter. So I
Wow.
was like, okay, I mean, clearly some of them I think were gravid when I got them because they look pretty thick. So we're gonna see. I'm kind of learning how to change the groups up and time everything right, but I'm actually really enjoying them in terms of like the personality of them and kind of the like interacting with them. They're definitely not like mice. They're a little more personable and seem more
I really
more
enjoy the rats
aware.
too.
I can tell I'm gonna like them. Like I'm gonna enjoy them. Like they're gonna be fun.
My kids reach in there, pull them out. There's
Mhm.
no problems, even with the babies. Like well, the babies are now grown, but
Mhm.
even no problems at all, no defensiveness. Like
Yeah.
little 5-year-olds can reach their hands in,
Well,
and it's fine.
and the nice thing too is like I guess if you want to consider it nice, I don't have anything nearly big enough to eat one of those rats. Like Jake does. Jake has some carpets and stuff that could probably take him. It'd be a huge meal for some of his adults. So I don't, like when it comes to culling adults on the regular, it's going to be nice to not have to do that because I'd feel bad. I don't like killing anything, so but I euthanize mice humanely and stuff, no problem. And it's because I've done it so much at this point. I still it sucks, but I want there to be zero suffering, no matter what the animal is, whether it's food or not. It needs the best life possible. Especially if it's going to be a feeder. I think you care about your feeders. That's the big piece of advice Rob Stone gave me when I was talking to him about feeders. And I don't know. I get a lot of satisfaction out of doing my own feeders and stuff. Like there's something about it that I just enjoy. Knowing what goes into them, being able to sort of pick and choose what sizes I need when I need them, and just knowing what they're eating and what's going into them, and that they were produced by me. They weren't, shipped in from another lab or something as excess. Like there's just, I don't know. I enjoy it, and so I think these rats, I'm gonna enjoy them too. But I will feel bad when it comes time to get rid of some of the adults. But like I said, fortunately, I'm not gonna have to do that too often. I don't think I'm gonna kind of let them pretty much live out their lives until they're sort of retired, and then move them on to greener pastures.
Well, and I've heard that, like with rats, you can leave females who aren't producing anymore in with young, and they'll still take care and be a good mom.
Yeah,
So,
Really?
so you could let your finished breeders just kind of hang around until they naturally
hmm
go, really.
yeah.
Because I have
Well, I've
nothing
got
big enough to eat a full grown. I'm not gonna have anything big enough to eat
yeah.
a full grown jumbo rat.
I mean, I have my southern pines or Florida pines, whatever they're called now. But those are so far away from even being close to that size to eat that. But Jake has some stuff, and Jake's helped me out with mice and stuff in the past. We were kind of partnered up on it, and then after a while, he was kind of, he was coming out to my house, which is like cross county, so it was like a 30-minute drive for him one way, and he finally was like, I'm just going to let you handle it. So he helped me out enough with stuff to where it's like, hey, if you need rats and I have these retired breeders, like, have at them because I don't have anything that's going to eat them. So it does kind of work out. I got them mostly for the younger stuff and the things that are the same size as like adult mice, because that's what I have currently is pretty much that's what they're going to be eating. So it kind of works out because I can get smaller stuff more frequently than I can with the mice. The mice, for whatever reason, lately have been kind of tough. It's been a pretty dry period on the pinky front.
And I'm hearing that up here too. Like everyone up here's
Really,
all there. Yeah. So that
I think it's just the time of year.
I wonder if that cold front that came through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because it hit here first and then came your guys' way. So
Yeah, yeah.
wonder if that had something to do with it.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. I know, sort of like middle of winter, middle of summer. That's when production really seems to slow down, just because that's when it's super hot and super cold. And so I think it's those sort of in between periods that things really sort of spike, and then it goes back into kind of a lull. But I don't know. It's whatever. I'd rather do that than have to buy frozen in bulk on the regular basis. That's for sure.
Yeah, that sucks.
Jake tells me all the time. He's like, dude, I just had to spend $400 on feeders, and I'm like, how long does that last you? And he's like, oh, like 3 months. I'm like, hell,
Holy cow.
no.
Yeah.
When I had that huge collection, I was spending, God, maybe close to $800 a month.
Oh,
Yeah.
yikes.
You sell a couple snakes, you go load up your freezer, so you're not really,
Oh
cycle of
yeah,
snake money.
just dumping it right back out.
Yep.
That one snake paid for half of the food for the month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily like producing your own is necessarily cheaper, especially if you're putting in effort to make sure they're eating good stuff, like you're getting high quality diet and whatnot. And I give mine like grasses or hays, and then with the rats and stuff, especially, I'm gonna start saving vegetable scraps and whatnot, and getting those into them, and um, changing it up so that they're not just eating the same thing all the time. They have options and things like that. And I think it is maybe a little cheaper long term than having to buy bulk frozen on a regular basis. But I wouldn't be surprised if, like, on an annual scale, it'd probably be close to the same. It's just you're not spending all of it
Well,
in these chunks throughout the year. Instead, you're once a week I'm spending $20 or $30 on bedding or whatever, and
it's your
and
time too, right?
yeah, but even then, like with the smaller operation, kind of like what I've got, I can reasonably clean everything in like under 2 hours, and that's what I usually do on Sunday mornings. I wake up
Mhm.
early, like even if I want to sleep in, I couldn't. So
Mhm.
when I wake up, I just get dressed and go over there and get it knocked out, and then just go on with my day. So it works out, and I
Yeah.
like it. I don't. There's something about it. I like
I think
cleaning and taking care of everything, and
the
I like the
flexibility of
rodent.
being able to get your own size and stuff, right? You know, that that's
yeah,
huge.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
I
I didn't
think.
mean to cut you off, man.
Oh no, you're golden. Uh, I think that I haven't ever bought bulk frozen, so I've always gone like we have a local store here who breeds rodents, so I buy from her frozen. But
hmm
I would say I'm probably in about the same cost at this point, and I have just one small colony of rats.
hmm
So I probably spent more right now, but by the next litter, I'll probably be about even, and her prices are
Mhm.
probably a little bit higher than bulk frozen,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah,
give or take the shipping.
right.
Uh, so
I don't think shipping isn't nearly as brutal as it used to be, though. I don't know if Eric would agree with that, but it seems like now a lot of places are doing like $30 flat rate for the most part.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of followed suit with the cold blooded cafe sort of way of doing things.
Yeah. I had the issue of I talked about on Carpets and Coffee, I think, a couple times, but I I got uh black-haired rodents, mice, and my snakes wouldn't eat it. And
I remember
it
y'all talking about that.
yeah,
yeah. I talked to Rob about that, and we sort of discussed it when he sent me that Tully Jungle female, and he was saying about there's a guy that he sells rodents to locally, like I guess his excess and stuff, and
hmm
he was saying about how the snakes became used to those feeders, so when he tried to switch them off to another feeder, he really struggled, right? So um, Rob was saying that usually when rodent breeders are having like different type of rodents than what they would usually send, then that means that they're getting stock from somewhere else
Right.
because they weren't able to fulfill those orders. So I, you know, I had that problem with the Tully, and then I had the problem with a couple other, uh, like the Darwins were picky about that, and
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah, they were.
I've been fortunate. I haven't had that issue with anything, but I also, with my carpets, at least what I've had in the past, and I haven't really had anything. I've had like a jungle cross or two, but most stuff I've kept has been pop ones, and I've never had an issue with that. Thankfully,
Oh yeah,
it didn't
no,
matter if it was a mouse or rat; they didn't care.
they always eat.
They
Yeah,
were they were equal opportunity when it came to
yeah.
color and flavor and
I,
all that stuff. So
I think that's the first time I've had that problem in God, man, in years. Because the way I would feed, like by the end of the winter time, come springtime, the snakes are ravenous. So, like, if you ever
yeah,
want
they
to
didn't care what
switch,
it was.
you know what I mean? If you ever want to switch them from a rat to a mouse or whatever, that's the time to do it because they'll eat whatever you put in front of them. So,
And I'm hoping I can get to a point to where I will have extras that I can sell locally and at least recoup some of the expenses on a weekly or
yeah.
monthly basis. And
Yeah.
um, that was sort of the plan with the mice, because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna use all these mice. And of course that was before I got, I had Chris Painchab sending me a ton of stuff. And then that changed things drastically when I was like getting corn snakes on the regular from him. So
Yeah.
It seems like it's easy to buy corn snakes, no? Because I don't know. I'm just so used to the Python price tag, so it's like,
that's the problem.
$1,000 plus, and then a corn
The
snake.
barrier to entry with corns is so much lower than so much other stuff. Like the top end corn snakes,
Yeah.
the max I've seen, I think, was maybe $500.
Yeah, man.
That's
dangerous.
Yeah. And you got Chris producing all this extra stuff, and he's like, me and him talked about it. I was like, if you ever have extras, like I've got space, send it to me. And then if it's something that I don't hold on to, I'll sell it. We'll split money, whatever. And so that's what we started doing. But the problem is he sent me like 20 corns. I ended up holding on to like half of them because they're really nice. And some of them he sent to me to hold on to. And so I'm like, well, crap, now I got, a ton of stuff. And then Eric Westmoreland had those castañas that no one had any interest in that sat on Morph Market for like 2 months. And I was like, dude, I'll send you a pair of Bairds. And he's like, done. So got like 6 corns from him over the course of like a week. And it adds up quick. It's dangerous. Corns are dangerous.
Yeah, when you can get one for $50 or $75, and then another one for $50 or $75, and you got a pair, and
produce really cool stuff.
And they're pretty cool looking. Yeah, exactly. Heck yeah. You sold me on it with corn stars. I had problems with corn snakes, and I'm happy I got this one, and I got another one lined up for it actually. So
yeah, I because of the whole feeder thing last year where I hatched a bunch of babies, and I thought I had planned accordingly in terms of like bulking up on pinkies and loading up the freezer and stuff. I hatched out a bunch of stuff, and then I was like, oh, I did not plan for this at all. Well, so this year I'm not going to be producing as much stuff. Maybe that'll change next year if I can get sort of the rodent thing sort of in full swing and get things on a good sort of cycle. But that sucked. Like you hatched a bunch of stuff, and it's like, oh, I got to order pinkies now. Like I wasn't enough, and then I kept having to use pinky litters that I was getting to feed what I currently had, and so it was just a sort of like treadmilling of feeders and stuff. And that's a mistake you seem to only make, because I did it with cresteds too, so apparently I have to learn this lesson twice. The lesson repeats as needed. Overproducing, and I'm sure Eric, you've experienced that at some point too, where you're like, oh, I'll be fine, I'm gonna pair like 10 pairs of cresteds and get 2 eggs a month for the next 8 months, and then I'm gonna breed 9 pairs of snakes and it'll be no big deal. Did the math, if all of them hatch, I'll have this many and I can handle that. And then you get them and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, 2018 did that to me. 2018
Really?
broke me. Yeah, I produced I think it was like 15 clutches of carpets, and so what's that?
And those are big clutches.
Yeah. So I was looking at, I think I had maybe 200 plus babies on top of what I was already taking care of. And a lot of the problem with, and what I didn't think about is like the whole idea of like when you're working in the high end snake market, you're not really going to sell it at a show. So I can't really go to the show. So it really came down to selling them on the internet. And at that time, Morph Market isn't what it was now. It was there, but it wasn't the same. But
King Snake and Fauna.
Yep.
Yeah, I did a lot off my website. I'm sure NPR helped it, but I felt like I wasn't giving the people that were reaching out to me the time that I wanted to, if that makes sense. And then I don't know. It just became too overwhelming. I was like, I'll never do that again. And of course, I'll say this many times throughout the show, Rob tried to warn me about this, and I didn't heed the advice. But I learned that lesson myself. I think Owen's there this year. I think there was a couple times where he was kind of like at at the breaking point. I had to walk him off the ledge, but he's different though. He's doing different stuff because he's doing stuff he can sell at shows. He's wholesaling a bunch of stuff. He's
Mhm.
he's doing it different than I did. I can't do really the show circuit because they're on the weekend. I work on the weekend, so
Right.
it just made it difficult. Then at one point, I was just going to wholesale stuff out to Owen, but I don't know. I just usually end up giving him stuff, and we don't really exchange money or anything like that. So I'm like, well, this
Yeah.
isn't going to work. So
That's
yeah.
how it's become with me and Jake too. I got Chris sent me a Janai by surprise with a box of corns, and I was like, oh, cool. I'm not a big Pituophis guy. Like I like them, but I don't want to keep them nearly as much as Jake does. And so, I've got it, and I'm like, that's space I need. And I was like, Jake, you want a Janai? I was like, yeah. And then he had corns, and he's like, hey, you want these corns? I was like, yeah. And it's just the back and forth.
Yeah. I think I just got a male olive python from him, but he got a lot of my morph breeders, like female adults. He got a lot of those, and he's actually produced a lot of them. He's like I don't know. To me, Owen's always like this guy that's kind of like I don't think people give him the credit that he deserves when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like he because he doesn't overthink it. Like I think I overthink things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want to get in the weeds of the thing, and like he's just like, wow, what's the problem? Yeah, I just put the snakes together and blah, 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 blah,
Stop thinking
blah.
about it. Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. But it just seems to work for him. I don't know. It's like he has this way of I think it's like he just sticks with it, he just doesn't let it break him. So like the white lips, that would be an example.
Yeah.
I'm like, screw this shit. This sucks.
You want to make more of these?
So,
Yeah, is the retic that he has your retic?
No.
Okay.
No.
I've been wondering that for a while because I know you had a female retic and now he's got a female retic, and I haven't heard you talk about yours in a long time. So
yeah, no, he had I don't even no, he got one from Matt Minatola. That's
okay.
where his retic thing started, and then his wife is really kind of fond of it. Owen is not so fond of it because he looks at the cage space that it's taken up. So he's kind of stuck with it now. But it's broken out of the cage, I think 3 times. So
that's a species I've always been I would love to have, because even just a normal wild type retic, man, those things are gorgeous. Pictures don't do them justice, but even with the super dwarf stuff, it's like that's still way more than I want to take on.
Yeah, that's such a back and forth topic, right? Like you don't want to be the guy that says that people shouldn't keep those kind of snakes, but at the same time, like I don't think that people really understand what they entail, especially like on mainland,
Yeah.
just an amount of food and
Well, I mean, it's the brutal honesty of it is that probably a solid 90-95% of people that have them either don't or won't give them what the recipe calls for.
Right. Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, sure, they can do fine in smaller setups and stuff, but it's like when you see a big retic, it's like that's not something you can just sort of cram into something tiny and be okay. Like it, I don't know.
Yeah, I go back and forth on it too, and be cool because they are pretty. They're gorgeous. Dave Kaufman just released some videos of them in the cave, and
yeah,
they're
some of the prettiest pythons in the world.
Super Absolutely. Pretty, and the patterning is just amazing too. But I don't know. I think when the Lacey Act thing happened, like 10 years ago ish, I think that pushed a whole bunch of people towards it because it was like, oh no, we're not going to be able to have them. Everybody rush out and go get them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I almost got one then, and I'm glad I didn't because I got out a couple years later. So that would have sucked to have to try to get rid of a 15-20 foot long snake.
Yeah, where are you gonna take that to?
Right.
Yeah, Reptile Gardens
I'd
isn't gonna want it. I promise.
I'd be very
Yeah.
curious to hear how many calls do the zoos and stuff get on a regular basis with people with, you know, the bigger stuff saying, "I need to get rid of this. You guys want it?" And then be like, "No, thanks." It's like, what happens then? You know?
I think so. Well, maybe 4 years ago, I think I had this realization when I bought a pair of African rock pythons, and I I I had the same thinking, like, okay, well, they're just in deli cups right now, not like thinking long term, like, oh shit, where am I gonna put these? You know. So I ended up actually sending them to Nick Mutton because he
Mhm.
wanted to breed them. But so it worked out. But I don't know. That was dumb. That was like an impulse dumb thing. And I think it's that I don't know about you guys, but like it's almost like it's addicting to buy snakes.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, yeah. You
A
know,
little bit.
I've transferred that into books.
I don't know that that's much cheaper though.
No. No, but you don't have to take care of them.
Right.
That's very true.
Uh,
No poop to clean up after a book.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I've been able to sort of like turn that off lately. Um, and that's been hard for me for a long time to be able to
Yeah.
like not because I mean you
There's
see so
there's
many cool
always
things,
something. There's
you
always
know
something
this
else.
and there's some podcasts talking about some species that you never heard of, and you know you get the right guest on there and they're talking about whatever that species is, and it gets you super excited about it. Even just doing the podcast, you know, I mean, you talk to
Yeah.
so many different people, and they're, you know, you're like, oh shit, oh that's freaking awesome, you know, and you know, like rhino rats are one for me, right? I mean, I'm sure if
Yeah.
I got on the phone right now and called Rob and said, send me a rhino rat, there would be a rhino rat in the
It
mail,
would
no
change your
problem,
life.
you know. But you know, I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to go down that road again, where I like one becomes two, two becomes three, three becomes four,
Dude,
four becomes 16,
there's
16.
so much fun.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I was really kind of. I went to Owens, and I haven't seen his collection in a long time. But I went to his house, and he has this big, huge cage. When you walk into his living room, it's naturalistic. It's got all this foam background on this. You know, remember those octagon cages that PetSmart would have?
Yeah.
That's what it is, basically. And he's got all these branches and trees, and he's got a pair of rhino rats in there. Man, was that cool! I was like, God damn, that is so cool, man. I just was staring at this cage forever, you know. Um, they're out and about,
Yep. All the time.
you know. So
They're
very
just,
cool.
man, that's a I think at this point I can with 100% certainty say that that is the most enjoyable species I've ever kept.
It's really, yeah.
Like without a doubt.
Yeah.
Like if someone said what is the most fun snake that you've that sort of fits all the bills of looks, personality, ease of care, like, you know, they're it. I think the next close second would be Brettles. And I love Brettles too. I don't have any anymore, but
Yeah.
like those that was another species where it was like, I freaking love these things. Like, why aren't more people having these? You know, you talk about sort of beginner snakes and stuff, and everyone says, you know, corns and balls and things like that. And I'm like, male Brettles, if you're okay with something getting a little bigger,
Yeah.
male Brettles is like the perfect snake. Like, you can't kill them. If you do, you set them on fire or something because
Right.
they,
You made some poor choices.
thanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I
100%.
haven't finished the book, the carpet python book.
Oh, you finished it? Yeah.
I have not,
Oh, have not.
but
Okay.
so Brettles are like the second biggest, right?
Um. Yeah, I
Where
guess.
do,
Yeah.
where do
Yeah.
imbricata fall on that line?
So they're actually sexually dimorphic. So females are big,
Oh,
probably coastal carpet size. Males are
okay.
very, very small, like very small. I want to say that they're probably one of the most sexually dimorphic species on the planet, with the size between difference between male and female.
More than hog
One
noses?
of them.
Sand boas?
Yeah. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
sandboas too.
Yeah.
You see a pair of hognose, and it just makes me laugh because it's like the male looks like it's still just came out of the egg like last week, and then you got a female that's a giant sausage.
Yeah, the one Scott Iper had was a female. She was, she was full grown. She's probably, I don't know, 7 foot, 8 foot, maybe.
Okay. Well,
But yeah,
oh, or you can go for it if you got something.
no, I was just gonna say that Brettles females probably what, maybe 9, 10 foot. Males are probably 7.
I don't know. My adult male, of course, I feel like I'm horrible at judging sort of size and length and stuff like that. And he was probably, I want to say, in like maybe the 5 or 6 foot range. And he was a handful of years old. You know, he was fully grown and he wasn't anything unmanageable by any means.
Oh no, yeah. Plus they're thinner, you know. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. There's something about a thin long snake as opposed to a fat
Mm-hmm.
long snake, you know. But
yeah, the more active, slender body style.
I do want Brettles again, you know, when I have more space. That's the reason. So I had a pair. The female went to Bill Bradley, and he uses her for his educational stuff now, which is awesome because he sends me pictures periodically, and she's gotten huge. And then the male, you know, I didn't really want to get rid of him. He was one that you know my daughter and my wife really enjoyed. You know, they liked taking him out and hanging out with him and stuff. But the space he was taking up in my room, because my room is not very big, just the cage space and stuff, it was just a lot. So I kind of made the decision of like, it's either hold on to him and not sort of put more focus into the other things I wanted to sort of focus on, or the opposite, you know. And he just ended up going back to my buddy right over the border in Georgia, who I got him from. And you know, like I said, one day I'll get back into him, but it's just kind of a tough decision. It was actually really sad. Like the day I got rid of him, man, it was tough because he was like the family dog for a while. You know, he's a great snake.
yeah, man, they're super underrated for sure. I know the 2 sleepers I say is inlands and diamond pythons. I think a lot of people are afraid of diamond pythons, but I think for like at least in the area I'm at, man, they fit in perfect. They're just like a colubrid, but in python form.
That's my number one pick in that whole entire genus.
Diamonds
would be diamonds. Yeah.
Oh my god, they're gorgeous.
But like there was like an episode of The Crocodile Hunter where there's this carpet python crawling through the woods. And I remember that as a kid, and ever since then I've wanted a carpet, but I know that wasn't a diamond. It was like a big
coastal.
Yep.
Yeah. But
they're all awesome.
Yeah. You won't get me to say any different, but
no, you got a whole
I may be biased.
Inlands are another one though. Like if I was when I do sort of get back into non-chondro Morelia, like inlands are definitely at the top of the list as well. That's just a matter of availability and space. Once again, you know, your room is never going to be as big as the list of things you'd like to get.
Yeah,
unfortunately. So got to make tough choices.
I think the inlands are a first pet as far as it's hard to capture what they look like in a photo. Mm-hmm. You just kind of have to see them, and it goes that way every time. Like everybody says, like, yeah, I don't know, they really don't do it for me. And then they see them in person, and they're like, oh shit, okay, this is not what I thought. So you have that part of it, but as far as the first snake part of it, they just don't bite. Like, I don't know. I've been bitten by all carpets except an inland. I've never been bitten by an inland. I mean, and I only have 6 of them, but it's I've heard that from other people that have had them. I don't know why they're not more popular. I guess it's just availability.
I think it's availability, and I think it's kind of like with the Brettles too. You know, they don't come in neon colors, they don't come in bright yellow or anything like that, and so it's kind of lost on some people that just want that that radiation, bright, insane color.
And I kind of think like
sweet morphs too.
Oh yeah. I kind of
That'd be
think
my
too, like do you think like the breeders don't really share them as much because they're not as flashy? You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to
Hmm.
if you want to share something on social media, you kind of have this you want to share the nicest, flashiest snake you have, or one you produced, or one you're breeding, or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of like, ball python breeders really don't show their breeders, right? They kind of just show the babies because they sort of lose that as they age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some don't, but I don't know. I just think like they're not just promote. I don't know why. There's not a lot of people working with them, I guess. But
But the same with Brettles. I mean, anytime that I've talked to someone who was like, "Man, I finally got one," and it is like everything you told me it would be. They're awesome. They're great. It's like, even though, I mean, they're like, yeah, they don't come in a bunch of crazy colors, but even then, like, a nice sort of high contrast Brettles with I like really high black Brettles, like that one Ben Frame produced.
oh
Just
yeah,
that is like that was the dream when I was heavy into Brettles. It was like that's what I wanted, was in a black Brettles.
yeah,
And even that female I had, she about halfway through, she was just dark, that gorgeous brick red into that nice black, super dark chocolate color. And like that to
yeah,
me was gorgeous. Like that was like, they're gorgeous snakes naturally. And I think that to me, that's one of the appeals, is like, you don't need the morphs. Like stonewash are cool, the hypos are nice, but like I'll take a nice high black Brettles over just about anything else in that
I, th-
realm.
I think the thing that fascinates me with carpets in general is just the variability overall. And I know all snakes have variability, but I don't see, and I have never produced anything, so I don't know firsthand, but I don't see the variability in ball pythons. And a part of me is wondering, like, if you just took ball pythons and you line bred them like some couple of people have anyway, like if you could get that variability back and start doing that, but no one wants to do that with ball pythons. It's
yeah.
about morph.
Why are you going to try to selectively breed something for years and years when you can just produce something right out of the gate that's gonna, you know, blow it away? But yeah, to speak to
I think
carpet
you
of
could even do that with base morphs and still have, like, someone
oh,
said, I'm going to focus.
100%.
I'm sure someone has, but like pastels and like Mojaves and like really simple stuff. Like if you just hammered that and just tried to extrapolate on that morph, that's already nice. Like I said, someone I'm sure has already done it, because I highly doubt there's stuff that hasn't been done in balls already. But
Yeah, back
I,
in the day, there was this guy. His name was Albie. Uh, he bred pastels, and this is reptile radio days, and Albie Too Shore Reptiles, and everybody wanted his pastels because he picked like the absolute best and bred it to the absolute best normal he could find, and just knocked it out of the park. It's just like just looked completely different than what anybody else was doing.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's normal.
there's a
What's
guy
that?
who's doing black pastels too. I can't think of his name right now. The
Right.
same way you can take a black
mm-hmm.
pastel and they look two totally separate animals.
Totally different. I think short tails are highly variable, like really,
Mm-hmm.
really variable when it comes to especially Borneos. But I think coastal carpets, at least from what I mean, when we just got back from Australia, man, we were pretty much in the same vicinity, and like they're just completely different looking snakes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how is this the same thing? And it kind of
Yeah,
made me think of like sometimes it made me take a step back, right? And it made me think about all the times that us Americans are arguing with the Australians about what they have in their, what they're seeing every day. So like we have this idea that a coastal carpet looks like this, a jungle carpet looks like that, and like we think that everything looks like that. But then you go into the wild and that's not the case at all. Not
it'd be
not the
like
case.
them telling us that a certain locale corn snake isn't
Yeah.
that.
Yes, 100%.
Like what?
And I'm just like, wow. Now I get what they're saying, because they're just so variable, so variable. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
the picking up a project that's a long-term thing is what I'm uh, is what I'm looking in for carpets anyway. That's more of a long-term line bred 20-year 10-year project,
Yeah. But the beauty of those things is that if you produce a certain look, people are always going to come, like nobody else is really going to be able to reproduce that look, unless they have your
Mhm.
stock,
Yeah.
But
Like
you can do
Nick
that
in
with
his
anything, right?
ivories.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Yeah. And they started out as, like, wow, it doesn't look as bright yellow. Like, let's make it white.
Yeah, that's
So,
crazy.
Those long-term projects, though, in my opinion, like those are the ones that are kind of the most fun because it's like you can't rush it. You have to stick with it. It requires a certain amount of commitment and dedication to see it through. And I think you get more satisfaction at the end of that or towards the end of that where you're seeing the results that you were hoping you'd get or shooting for in the first place.
yeah.
Than sort of just trying to, 4 year in, get stuff, get out of it. I'm doing that with the locality corns that I have from my area here. Like my plan with those is like, don't know what's going to happen if I sort of line breed these, but we're going to find out. And there's no real sort of agenda there. Just seeing what crops up along the way.
Yeah, you hold
That-
back the coolest ones and move from there,
That's how I'm approaching the bull snakes that I have. So same way.
Yeah. And
There's
their
something
locality to
very
your
enjoyable
area?
about
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were collected by a rancher probably 40, 50 miles away from my house, out on the
Nice.
plains. I'm in
Nice.
South Dakota in the Black Hills, so
Nice.
yeah.
Well, no
Are they
wonder you
actually
like
black?
carpets.
They are from a ways away. Right? Oh man, if
You're
you
right
knew
there
how
by
many
Terry.
if you knew how many times I'd listened to every episode you recorded with Terry.
No wonder that
Oh
show's one of
man.
the highly rated shows. Yeah, Terry's an awesome guy, man. Yeah.
He's a tough one to get on.
He won't do it.
He
He's
won't.
He's like the Barkers. He just won't do it. He
I
just
tried to get him to do a ContraCast episode, and he's like, I appreciate it, man. He's like, it's just I like to sort of stay in the back. I'm like, no problem. I understand.
Well, my co-host's husband used to work at Reptile Gardens, so I'm sure that there's a connection there too. And yeah, I'm not even gonna ask because I know the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I asked him a couple times to come back, but he got so I think a lot of it had to do with like when he came on NPR, he talked about how he keeps, and the no hotspot type of deal and all that. And I think at the time that was like super controversial. And I think a lot of people like were hitting him up to talk to him about it or like pick his brain, and he just didn't want. I don't even think it was the static so much as like people were just wanted to more in depth talk to him about it, and I just didn't think he wanted to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean it is. I don't. It's whatever. If someone says they're not into it, then no big deal. It is what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had that many times. I've had that.
Not gonna hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
I get it. Like,
yeah, 100%.
just leave that door open and be like, whenever you want to come on, like we'll clear the schedule and make it happen.
Yeah, I've tried to do that with the Barkers. I've tried to do that with who's the other one? He's in Florida. Oh shit, he's a python breeder down there. What's his name? Ah shit, Keoghan.
Oh.
Tom Keoghan.
Oh yeah.
Casey Lasik, same thing. And I have an in there and still no go. So
with the Barkers in particular, it's interesting because with the amount of stuff they've done sort of in herpetoculture as far as like putting out information and books and things like that, you would think that it wouldn't be that way, but I don't know.
Yeah, they're already pretty publicly known anyway.
Well, there's a little more to that story that why they don't do that, but I mean, the one guy that was good friends with me, he grew up with her. Like he went to school with her, and he couldn't convince her to come on. So I'm like, if you
Wow.
can't get her on, there's no hope.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
There's no hope. So
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know. It's like I said, it's not that big of a deal. It's whatever. It's just it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I can't say that I necessarily blame people. It's definitely not everyone's thing.
yeah.
I think especially the older crowd.
Yeah.
I think the older crowd is more like, they stay in their little sections of
What the hell's a webcam and a stream?
yeah.
Yeah.
I have to use a computer? Are you out of your mind?
Oh. Yeah.
That was the one message Crutchfield sent me the week before. He thought we were recording. He's like, my wife's not here. I don't know how to set the podcast stuff up.
Hell,
I'm like, well, Tom, it's next week, so we're good. He's like, oh, no problem.
Yeah, you just had Tom Crutchfield on. That was a good episode too.
Yeah, I like the history of herpetoculture. I like the whole, how it was back then.
Did you get that Dragon Traders book?
I did, yeah. I've had that for a while. Yeah, it's great.
That was a great book.
Yes,
Dragon
really,
Traders.
really good. Yeah, it's
Okay.
the history of the hobby, basically.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've read
it's really good.
Michael Berger.
I've read a good chunk of the Stolen World. I still got to get through the more complete Carpet Python. That's a daunting task.
Get on your scuba gear because you're going deep on that one.
Yeah, no, I'm like, I think I'm on the second or third section. So
yeah,
I'm gonna read it cover to cover.
So we got a copy for the upcoming raffle, and I flipped through it very quickly, but I didn't want to really open it and read it out of fear of messing one of the pages up or something. It's basically get it, put it on my dresser, and leave it there so nothing happens to it.
Did it open right to a picture of a bird? Because I'm not the only person who experienced that. Owen said yeah, there's one picture of a bird in there that Zoolander took.
Had to take the bird picture.
Yeah. Of course it was bird picture.
So I opened it, and the first thing it opened up to was this picture of the bird. And then I remember Owen talking, I think it was Owen, who was like, yeah, no, I opened up the more complete Carpet Python, and the first thing I see is a picture of a bird. I'm like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're just manufactured to flip open right there or something.
There you go. Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's because it's so thick. God damn, it's a thick book.
Oh yeah, it is. You could drown
I got the package in the mail, and I was like, good Lord.
Yeah.
This is I'm sure the post office sees that and they're like, you really want is this actually a book? This is supposed to be media mail, but it's are you sending someone some pavers in an envelope? What do you
just imagine carrying 10 or 15 of those boxes in?
God. They could probably only fit 10 in a box.
Yeah, poor Justin. He was talking about that unloading boxes of books. So
suspension on his car's all jacked up.
Well, that might be from herping. You've driven with Zoolander.
Oh man.
But yeah, we just got I started I was just telling Owen we should start giving away books on the show, Carpets of Coffee. And we just got this one. Did you guys ever read that one? Hunter in the Trees.
Yeah, I'm reading that one right now. Oh my God, it's so good.
It's so good.
It's not the weird thing is I got it because I had wanted it forever. It was on my Amazon wish list for years, and I finally got a hold of it. And I was kind of expecting to be bigger than it was.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started reading it, and the amount of information in that, it's a prime example of a book doesn't have to be huge to have really, really, really good information in it.
Yeah,
because that thing had some stuff. It talks about the blood pressure systems and differences between arboreal snakes and terrestrial snakes, and how arboreal snakes are more suited to climb, and how their circulatory system is different to handle blood pressure changes, blood to the brain. It's like just stuff that you didn't even think about.
I remember we were when we were at ICAS, Dr. Harvey Lillywhite, he's the guy that wrote How Snakes Work. He did a presentation on that. He
It's
did
another one I need to get.
whole presentation, How Snakes Work. Oh, that
Billy said it was really good.
It's the one of, if you're into snakes, you got to have that book, man. That's a must-have.
Is it mostly related to like physiology and anatomy and stuff like that, or is it?
It's everything. It's just everything. Like there's there's a chapter on feeding. There's a chapter on just everything about snakes. Everything the phylogeny and all that kind of stuff. That I kind of get lost sometimes in that taxonomy
I don't know, man.
and all that
like
stuff.
I love phylogenetic trees and stuff like that, and seeing where things sort of branched off from one another, I find fascinating. But
I do, but sometimes it's one of those things where it's not easy reading. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like the very beginning of the book. So I think like a couple times I tried to read that book and had trouble like staying with it. But once you get past, well, I mean, if you're into that, then it's cool. I mean, I'm into it, but it was just hard reading.
Very analytical.
Yeah. No. But once you're past that, it's just, venoms and just everything. It's awesome. It's an awesome book.
Yeah. That's something the last couple of years, I'd say probably the last 2 years or so, that I've found myself wanting to learn more about is literally like bettering my knowledge in terms of anatomy and literally like how snakes work and things that I feel like are often overlooked. Even sort of the medical side of things. And like I have that, that Mater's vet book, which is worth every friggin' penny. Like I've referenced that book a handful of times, and like that was one that if I had the time and ability to read the entire thing, I would. But it's just there's so much stuff in there, you can't possibly retain all of it. But it's oh man, there's just I find that
that's
fascinating.
like
yeah, it's like 3,000 pages of just just.
And I'm sure
Heavy
that's
came
not
in the mail. Like holy
light
shit.
reading either.
It's not.
No.
Well, actually, I don't know. I really didn't find it to be overly technical or like hard to digest. Like it wasn't really anything that was like I don't have the degree to be able to understand what this is saying.
Yeah.
But there's stuff like gastroenterology and like immune systems and hepatology and stuff like that. Like there's really no other books that sort of cover the technical aspect of like how those things operate and like what needs to happen between lizards and tortoises and snakes and things like that. And
right.
I find myself wanting to know more of that. And I think part of that is to not have to rely on a vet so much for things that I could potentially handle myself. And knowing more, like being more clued into what might be happening and sort of what's going on if something's off. And like I said, I've gone and read through that book a handful of times in terms of, I had that blood red female that was egg bound last year. And so I flipped through that chapter and read about what you can do and what happens. And I've been really, really just hungry for that kind of information in the last couple of years. And I don't really know why, but I just want to know more in terms of like the things we're keeping on a regular basis and things we're playing with on a regular basis.
100%.
I feel like we should have a pretty good grasp of like what's going on inside of them and anatomy and general physiology and stuff like that. It seems kind of, you may not need to know how a car works entirely. You use it every day, but it's probably not a bad thing to have at least a sort of a baseline knowledge of what's what and what it does.
I think that's like the progression of herpetoculture, right? Well, at least, for me, that's kind of like where I'm at, right? It's like you learn, what a Mojave spinner blast is, right? But then, you kind of
out its heart on a chart.
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't know, how like you go in your snake room, you see a snake, something's different about it. Like trying to understand what that is, like why is it doing what it's doing, and having a better understanding of behavior and how to keep them the best that you can. all that kind of stuff, understanding how their body works, everything, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not saying everyone should know the
No.
anatomy of a snake and be able to point it out or anything. I just think that it's, to me personally, it's one of those things where if you're keeping it, it's probably wise to be clued into at least what might be going on inside of them.
Yeah. I think that you're pulling oh man, I lost it. Jeez. I think, yeah, I don't know. I had it. It'll come back. It'll come back. It's a good thing I spend a lot of time end post.
That's where me and Burke differ wildly.
That's yeah. Yeah, and that's where me and you are gonna differ too, Smitty, because I enjoy that. I spent 6 hours on the episode that came out today after we recorded it.
Would
So
rather stub my toe on my coffee table on purpose and listen to a 3-hour podcast we just did and listen to it all over again. Like I'm just lazy. That's what it is.
I find
not maybe I just am. I'm lazy.
I find that second listen.
What you hear?
I find that second listen, like I pick up more, and then I'm writing down more questions for the next time I'm going to talk to this person, and I'm picking up, because like when I'm talking, I'm thinking about it, but I'm not actually like cognitively sitting down and thinking about what's being said. You know, I'm here participating. Yeah. So I like being able to re-listen to it. I think I spend a little too much time. I was sick last week, so there was a ton of coughing that had to get edited out. But
oh yeah, I don't know. We've been lucky, man, because there have been very few episodes that I had to edit anything out, and if I did, it was usually something like an abnormally long pause because someone had to go stop and do something, or something stupid was said that didn't need to go out there. But for the most part, if I have like questions to add to something, like follow-ups, like I keep my little notepad and I'll just jot down a word or two that reminds me of that question and fit it in there somewhere. But I'm just lazy. Like everything you hear out of everything we do, like that's as it was. Like all my settings and stuff are put on my interface and they stay the same, and I throw on the intro, I throw on the outro, and it is exported and it is uploaded. Like that is it.
Some of them that I do are like that, you know, like, you know, Carpets and Coffee. I don't do anything to that. But that's a live show. So it's kind of like, if we do a live stream of NPR, I don't do that. I just, I don't know. I enjoy it. It's kind of like the music part, like being an engineer type of thing in my brain type of deal. But it seems like a lot of times that, you know, when you're it lets me listen to I mean, we're lucky. We have like some pretty freaking amazing people that are doing podcasts with us. So like, you know, when I was doing that Mandarin rat snake episode, going through that. Yeah.
I was listening to that this morning. I'm like thinking the entire time, like, man, Eric had to, like, I love Matt and I love Zach. That is one of my all-time favorite podcasts, bar none, is Colubrid and Clubroid.
Right.
But I'm like, I can only imagine Eric sitting there having to go back through that. and the dog.
Yeah.
Just going.
This morning at work, I'm just building stuff.
Yeah, that was kind of like that was kind of like the Crutchfield thing was there was no way I could take it out, but like he was in the, you know, I guess his dining room or whatever, and he was on the computer, and his wife or whoever was in the kitchen, and like a couple times she dropped like dishes or pans or something, and I'm just like, how am I gonna get this out of here? Because he's talking during it. I'm like, oh well, I guess it is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you think that you enjoy that?
Tell people to deal with it.
Do you think you enjoy that the sound engineering side because of the guitar and all of that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
That's where I'm at too.
I like the creation part of it. Like I like to create, you know, whether it's a song, or whether it's a snake or a podcast. I just like that whole idea of creating something from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm a builder.
There you go.
This is why I do construction.
Yeah, I mean, we've like Jake and I and Phil. I mean, we've been really lucky. Like somehow it has worked the way we've done it to where I don't have to edit things. Like even early on, Jake and I feel like we kind of found our sort of our rhythm and back and forth, and it's just worked that way. Like it's completely unspoken. It wasn't anything that was ever planned. It was just one of those things where it just kind of worked out to where I didn't have to really take anything out. So I don't know. It's odd. It's interesting. We've been lucky, I think.
I can relate to that. Me and Owen, I think of all the podcasts I do, Owen and I, like, I don't know. It's like spend 12 years with somebody, kind of get to know their, he knows my things. I know his things. He knows when I'm going to talk, when he's going to talk. So there's not like that, that rhythm is good, So I very rarely have to really edit NPR. I just like to, I'm trying to get it to where it's more polished, if that makes sense. Like not really take away
Mhm.
from the interview part of it, not really editing that as far as me and him, but just making it a more polished podcast, a more professional sounding podcast. But that's the beauty of the podcast thing, man. There's so many people do it different styles, and that's great. I love it.
I noticed your new intros and your new style on this episode of Crutchfield, and I really do. I like it.
I think it's kind of like, I listen to podcasts and I always try to put myself, when I'm listening to one, like, what is it that captures me, that wants me to make me listen to this show? You know what I'm saying? Is it the title? Like even just little things like that, like making better titles and stuff. And is it the first couple minutes of the show that I've, like I'm thinking that talking to Owen, should we not talk about what's going on with us? I mean, but at the very beginning for the couple minutes, but that's sort of been our thing since the beginning, so, sometimes we do it like with Tom, we didn't do it because it's like, well, why the hell do people want to hear about, what we got going on? They're tuning in to hear Tom, so let's not even do that.
No.
That kind of thing. But
yeah, we're still figuring out what we're wanting to do. Like I kind of want to. I didn't want to ever just come in and be breeder interviews, and I think there's enough of that. You guys over at NPR have that locked just fine. So, we're trying. I don't know. Peggy's a conservation biologist, so we want to get some like actual conservation people on who are actually doing work in the field. She'd be really good at coming up with more questions for that as well.
Yes.
Our last two shows now have been more conversational, and the topics kind of came after we recorded. So I don't know what it's gonna end like, but
well, I think that's the sort of the nice thing about sort of the evolution of podcasts is like I started THP as a direct result from failing and from the ground up. There's people that started doing podcasts after we did, which is kind of branched off and tried to change things up from sort of what we've been doing in NPR, and so there's like it helps with the progression of things because it forces people to fill the gaps that they don't see being filled, and I think overall that's a net positive. Like that's a good thing because then more bases are getting covered. And
well, and if one person figures out how to fill a gap, then even the other people can all benefit from that as well. Like if I can find a way to edit down 20 minutes of a podcast to where it hits on YouTube pretty well, then like why wouldn't you guys do that? That it only benefit you to do something somewhat similar anyway, But,
yeah, it's like, to me, my goal was always to educate people about snakes, right? My thing is always really, I mean, yeah, I do dabble in lizards and stuff, and I do like them, and I like listening about them and all that. Everything is good. But really my love is snakes, right? So the whole goal of the network is that, like, I need people to talk about these like I talk about carpets. So I need somebody, that's into colubrids, like, because I think, Riley and Owen tried it, and again, it's just like me talking to Owen about colubrids. Like, we don't keep well, he does now, but at the time, we don't keep. It's just a different experience you're gonna get from listening to somebody that's kept them and saw them in the wild, and just bred them and all these different things. So when I was talking to Zach, his thing was that he wanted to do NPR, but he wanted to do the NPR style, but for colubrids. So he like made me write down exactly what we did. Here's the intro. Here's the beef of the conversation. Here's the outro. He's like, okay, that's what we're going to do. And he kind of took the ball and ran with it. And it's great because now you're getting not Eric and Owen talk about colubrids that nobody wants to maybe Owen talked about colubrids, but I don't have the knowledge to be able to do it. But I think that has to be out there. And I couldn't have picked two better people, in my opinion, to do it. I think they're doing great. Same thing with boas. Shit.
Yeah.
Warren Booth, Rob Stone, and Keith McPeak talking about boas. Like, come on. The episode.
I got real excited about that Jamaican boa episode.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I listened to that yesterday because I love Jamaican boas. I'm hoping eventually I can at least have one.
Yeah.
I've talked to Rob about it previously, but they're so freaking cool, man. I saw one at the Jacksonville Zoo a couple weeks ago when we were down there, and I was like, damn it, those things they're so neat.
I love him. The one when we were at his place, the one he had was just, oh my God,
he's got one that is just unbelievable. I think it's the same one. Yeah,
that one.
Just
holy shit,
ridiculous.
Seeing that snake in person, I was like, what the?
I had no idea that those were as closely related to anacondas as they are.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
I had no clue.
Right.
I need to listen to this episode, apparently.
Yeah.
So Rob swears, like, again, see, this is where I don't listen to him, but I think this time I'm going to listen to him. So I was talking about Jamaican boas a while back because they're just gorgeous. And he's like, Eric, you want a Jamaican boa? I'll send you a Jamaican boa. It's not a big deal. But I think you are going to like the Puerto Rican boas better. And I'm like, yeah, but man, I really like the look at. He's like, I'm telling you, you're going to like the Puerto Rican boas better. They're like a coastal carpet. I'm telling you. So
yeah, I'm convinced that he's a being from another dimension or something, because he just, like, I don't like to sort of put him on a pedestal necessarily, but like the guy is just, I've never met anybody like him.
No.
Like, it's just, he's so intuitive with so many different things.
Yes.
And it's just like, it blows your mind sometimes, because just the way he looks at things is just so vastly different from 99% of the rest of us, that it's just like,
yes,
where did you come from? Like, what the hell are you?
Like that thing he was talking about with the size of the mouse and the, you know what he was talking about? It's just like, what?
Because that got me thinking, thinking about some of the rhinos and stuff. Like, in talking to him, like, I've switched them over to smaller, more frequent meals rather than like hoppers and stuff that we would feed an appropriately sized corn snake typically.
Right.
Instead of giving them like fully furred mice, like, I'll give them 4 or 5 fuzzies or like 8 pinkies, like, and they seem to do legitimately better on that than they do a bigger single meal.
Yeah.
Like, they're more designed, I think, for that nest rating aspect. And then talking to him, and him sort of telling me that as well, and trying it, like, I did notice a difference.
Yeah.
You don't get that from just reading stuff. That's why, like, guys like him are so damn important to everything.
I mean, he's a huge importance to NBA. Like, it's funny. He would call me like once a week, and he's like, "Okay, let's go over some notes." Just about various things, whether it's our podcast, one on the network, or other ones that we listen to. And he's just like, "Did you listen to this? And what did you think of that?" And then we're talking for 2 hours. My wife made dinner. It's sitting on the table, and I'm just like, I'll be up in a minute. I'll be up in a minute. But
I
That was the whole
never
that was the whole. What's that?
I've never met Rob, but he is only like 6.5 hours away from me. He's in the he's biggest city closest to me anyway.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Denver is, so
Yeah. He's a good dude. He's a very unique individual.
yeah, he seems like it. I know back in the early days of NPR, you'd have him on just to recite history of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think we've probably talked about this, but how I met him was he did a show on reptile radio on rhino rat snakes, and just the depth of his knowledge about that species just like blew me away. I didn't give two shits about rhino rat snakes. I didn't care. They weren't on my radar. But I heard him on there and I was just like, this guy, wow, holy shit. And he knew me from reptile radio because of like I would always be asking the carpet python questions. And when I started NPR, he, there was really no other reptile podcast at the time. I think there was maybe one other one at the time. And, he started listening to us, even though it wasn't in the carpets. And then he just called me up and then, we became instant friends and we've been friends since. And, he would just,
I want to know how does he retain the information, A, and then B, like the attention to detail.
His brain just works different.
It's like I like figure out a way to bottle it up or something, because it's like I just what I would give for just like 10% of that, of what he what he's capable of and what he does is just
I
don't know. Like I said, I don't want to put him on a pedestal or anything like that, but
yeah, let's not give him an ego and all,
Damn it, man. He's one of like, if not the person I look up to the most in herpetoculture, bar none.
Yeah, probably same here. Yeah, 100%. He's the guy I talk to the most about everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's the thing that also blows my mind is just the fact that he's not old.
No,
he's not an old guy. But it's like, how do you to be the age that he is? Because I mean, he's still, he's not even 40.
No,
right?
I think he's 36.
How have you done the things you've done and learned the things you've learned? Because I mean, I'm 32. I'm not that far behind him. But it's just it's just wild. Like I there's no explanation for it. I don't know.
I think it's just his experience, and the people that he was, doing Daytona in those early days, and he was there for all that stuff. And Cam being in his backyard, I'm sure, working at Pro Exotics, Yeah,
it's a similar story with Phil too. Like, I wonder how
Phil's
you get. I wonder how you learn how to do venomous sometimes. Like, where do I go and find someone here?
That's a Florida thing.
Yeah, he's got all of that.
Florida
stuff.
Man.
Phil's a lot like Rob, and like I get the vibe from him where he knows a lot about a lot. Right? I know a lot about a little, but they know a lot about a lot. Like you'll say X species, and he's like, blah 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 blah. I'm like, how the hell does he know that?
Just studying flashcards in their spare time.
But he had the same thing, right? Didn't he work a lot in the industry? Like worked at pet shops.
Yeah, he did. He worked
importers.
He
and
worked
stuff like that.
strictly for a long time, which I always thought was kind of funny, given the the sort of the controversy and stuff behind them. Worked for Underground for a long time. Just he's done a lot, and I don't know if it was sort of like him just sort of jumping right in the trenches from the beginning and trial by fire kind of thing. But yeah, same thing. And the sort of how he came around too was sort of similar to Rob for you. Like he, I think, started listening to the podcast, and he messaged me or sent me a friend request one day, and I'm like, who's this guy? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm going to Daytona. You should meet up with me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, man. And then met him, and it was like, I remember the first time I met him at Daytona, and it was like we had known each other for a lifetime.
Yeah.
It was just this weird, like, instantaneous sort of click, and it's been it's been like that ever since. Like that's my guy, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very similar to me and Rob. It was like, like the first time I talked to him, how like when you first meet, it took me longer to get to know Owen than it did Rob. It was like, but
So, well, I don't know. I had something, but it's
I'm sorry, man. I keep screwing you up.
no, you're fine, man. It's all good. It's conversational anyway, so I don't have any questions at this moment. What
I have a question for
okay.
you guys, and maybe you'll relate to this. Schmitty, do you find when you go on other podcasts that like you don't want to over talk, but at the same time you feel like your podcast, you know what I'm saying? Like you with THP, you're sort of the guy in control of it, right? You know what I mean?
You're sort of driving the bus.
Yeah, and it's like I try to thread that line so much, so I don't mean to like
No.
to like talk over you or whatever, but it's like I'm sitting in the chair, I'm in the seat, and I'm just like, oh
Right.
well.
Yeah, I mean a little bit. I think it's nice being on the other side of things and not having to worry about outlines and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't
Get
worry
to
about
enjoy
that anyway today. So. Clearly, I'm not that prepared. Oh, if we had all 6 people here or 8, I don't know. This was going to be a huge show, dude. Huge. I had you two, Peggy, and she was going to bring a turtle friend. I had 2 lizard people lined up. Like, it was going to be a good show of some smack talking against reptiles that you don't like. But yeah.
I'd just be talking about rhino rats the entire time and why they beat everything. So.
Well, you could do that too. We'll have to
do
that with Rob.
Oh yeah.
There's so many of those out there.
Rob, man, can obliterated.
Yeah,
like pistol whipping a blind kid.
Yeah. I feel like when I have a good theory, I always run it through the Rob filter first. Like, Rob, I was talking to so-and-so and this popped into my head. What do you think? And he, I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad I didn't just blurt that out on NPR.
I do like it's funny because I normally like most opinions about what we do and the things we do don't matter to me. But for some reason, it is always Rob that I'm like in the back of my head going, Rob's going to listen to this and just tell me how disappointed he is. And it's just going to ruin everything.
That's so true.
Like, my fear of letting Rob down to any degree is paralyzing.
Oh man. Now he's going to listen to this and he's going to have a big head. Oh.
Well, that's the funny part too, is he's going to be like,
hey man,
my opinion really matters. Yeah.
Hey man.
You don't understand, man. If there's anybody that I feel like I constantly have to like impress and reassure that I know what I'm doing and I'm not a complete moron, it's you.
Yeah. 100%. You'll find your Rob too, Matt. Don't worry.
I listened to the Klubert and Klubroid radio episode today, and they were talking about how they got a second person to fill in case one of them's gone. I was like, man, we really need that. Like, Peggy's gone this week, but it would be really hard.
It is nice
because
having a backup.
It would be really hard though, because like, if I'm gone, we need like that snake guy who just has bred him in his house and doesn't know too much. And if Peggy's gone, I need like a biologist, which is a totally different.
That's a little tough.
Yeah, but we fill 2 totally different roles.
Quite the position to be in.
I actually took the idea, like, I like Klubert and Klubroid radio for that, like doctor, not doctor. And
Yeah.
that's what I was really hoping for when I put the ad out for a co-host, and I got
Right.
really lucky. Really
Yeah.
lucky, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, like I told you the other day, I listened to the first couple episodes, and like that was the instantly sort of the really interesting thing that stood out was like the dynamic of you two and having the two totally different backgrounds, and I don't know, I find that really interesting because you got two very different sort of perspectives and ways of coming at things. And
Completely separate ways of thinking too. I mean, she comes up with things that I wouldn't have ever came up with, and I'm sure I do the same. So yeah,
But even like hearing her involvement, in that first episode with the painted turtles and stuff like that was really cool. Like the fact that she sort of teamed up with I guess what's your equivalent to Department of Natural Resources and being like, hey, this is kind of what I want to do. And them just sort of giving her that ball and letting her run with it.
yeah, no,
It's awesome.
they've totally given her that ball to run with. Um, it sounded, according to the last episode, it sounds like she's a little iffy on doing a whole breeding colony of ox turtles like the state wants her to do. But she she is working
cool
on
projects regardless.
she is working on getting traps for like threadier sliders that have been released. And, yeah. That conservation side, I was really happy that I got, because that's a real
Well, yeah, to
conservation
actually
biologist.
exactly, to have someone who's, like, legitimately doing it, 'cause conservation is a word that I feel like gets thrown around very loosely, and it's very sort of vague at this point too, because you see it on Instagram and stuff all the time, people saying education conservation, and it's like, what does that mean? Like, what do you just like in the Colubrid and Clubroid episode that just dropped, talking about, like, people say they're conserving things, but if we're just breeding stuff to keep in captivity, we're not really conserving anything except that species position in the hobby.
Like,
Right.
So to have someone who's legitimately, and Loafman too, in that same sense, like people that are actually going through the necessary steps and the things that they have to do, which is a lot of hoops to jump through from the sounds of it, to like actually be doing conservation work. It's like I just see it on Instagram now, and I'm like, what you're like?
I feel like that kind of comes from like maybe the zoo world a little bit, where they're pushing the conservation by showing a species. So we're conserving the species by breeding it and showing it. Maybe,
Yeah, and I guess there is
maybe a
sort of a
little.
second definition to it in terms of herpetoculture, where it's like you have species that not many people are doing anything with, and like if it wasn't for those people, we probably wouldn't have them around. Like they would be rarely available or not available at all. But in the sense of like conservation of, like legitimate conservation, it's like we're not doing any of that. We're not releasing any of these things. It's not as simple as just breeding it and then letting it go. It's a
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's weird how much that term gets thrown around now, and it's like, what does it actually even mean? Like, what do you?
Yeah, you're not gonna go and release a whole bunch of morph ball pythons back into the wild. That's for sure.
Like, I'm breeding those local corns. I'm not going to go and just start releasing corn snakes. I mean, I could if I wanted to, because they're they're natural, like they're F1s and stuff like that. But it's like that corn snakes aren't hurting where I'm at. I'm not doing anything really except probably feeding the local raccoons and stuff baby corn snakes. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like we use that as, something to make us feel better about keeping snakes in boxes, but at the same time, to me, it was always the fact that if you kept a snake, then you would kind of be aware of, taking care of the environment, or you know what I mean? Like you're more aware of it, type of deal, than if you didn't.
Well, I mean, Jamaican boas, that's a prime example. Like, no one's taking Jamaican boas from Jamaica. There's a reason they're like endangered,
Right.
and it's like by us breeding them in the U.S., none of them are going back to Jamaica.
No.
And like we're pretty much conserving them just for the sake that people can even have them, is kind of like what is that at. But at the same time, they're getting so obliterated in their natural habitat and stuff. It's like what we do over here has zero bearing on what's going on down south, you know?
Right.
I don't know, it's odd.
Mm-hmm. I do find it quite impressive that they've bred that. What do you call it? They bred those for how many years that they have, and they're like very. There's a very good gene pool of both Puerto Ricans and
Yeah.
Jamaicans. I mean,
I remember when Rob told me that, I was really surprised because that was one of the things I asked him about when we were talking about Jamaicans, you know, back and forth a little bit. And I was like, have they not had any issues with that? Because surely, like, the founding animals that for what we have, like, there had to be a bottleneck, even for being, I guess, what you would consider, I guess, an insular species. And he's like, no, actually, it's the opposite. Like, you would think that that would be the case, but they're freakishly diverse.
well, what I take from that group of guys that work with those species, like I think is what's his name, Jeff Murray. He's one that comes.
Yeah,
Rob,
yeah.
Keith, Warren, all those guys. Tom Crutchfield, he works with West Indian boas and stuff. But what I take from them is that it's interesting when you take the money part out of the herpetoculture, how different it's approached. You know, and
when that financial incentive is non-existent.
Yeah, and it is.
Like,
It's
that's what separates people that
at
are
all.
genuinely interested in it versus the people that
100%.
think there's something in it for them, you know?
And I didn't even know, shame on me, I didn't even know about that website, westindianboas.org. Holy shit. Have you seen that website?
No.
Oh, man, you got to check that out. I mean, just the amount of work that went into putting that site together about the West Indian boas is just super impressive, like unbelievably impressive. So I think these guys that are doing these, they just have a love for these animals, and they're not in the hobby, and they don't really care, and they're sort of in their own. I'm very jealous of this situation,
But that's a part of herpetoculture that I like, that I love, and that's what I get the most excited about, is when you have guys that are so dedicated into a group like that, that they go all out and get as much information as they can and put it together in a website and everything. Because Daniel Schwint is doing the same thing. He has gonyosoma.org, which is all of Freight Freitas, his information. I don't think Freight's around anymore. I don't know for sure, but all his writings and stuff on gonyosoma, like Jansseni and oxycephalum, are on that website. And like Daniel Schwint is now, he runs that website, and he's the one who got permission to put that information out there. And like, I just started a gonyosoma group for US people on Facebook, because there is a group, but it's almost entirely people across the pond. So I was like, there's not a ton of people in the States really focused on gonyosoma as a whole, whether it's rhinos or any of the other sister taxa. So I was like, let me get a group together. And it's already like, there's only like 36 people in it so far, but like, there's already talks with Daniel about like adding more information to that website that extends to other species in that group and the sister taxa and stuff like that. It's like, it's so cool to have such a small but hyper focused group on such a cool group of snakes that, they're available all the time and they're imported all the time, but few people are actually successful with them, just in keeping them alive for the most part.
Right.
Like, it's awesome. I think it's going to be a really good resource for a lot of people. And I feel kind of bad because we've had a handful of people from like France and stuff try to join, and it's like, it's the US Gonyosoma Alliance. Like, it's us.
Yeah.
US.
Yes.
Try to unite
building
the
a
front.
wall around your group.
I did the same thing with like a local herp group here, where there's like Savannah, Georgia, which has a big reptile community and stuff. But I was like, let's have something for people on this side of the border, because they have their own thing. Like, most of the people that are in our local group are in those groups too, so they see what's going on. But it's like, for people that are just in our like county,
Right.
let's do something. I mean, no one uses that group, no one ever posts in it, and whatever. I don't care. But
Right.
the US Gonyosoma stuff, it's like, there's not a ton of people really focusing and working with Gonyosoma specifically. So I was like, let's get that handful of people together and have something where we're all talking to each other and we're all sort of clued in, and hopefully we can help people that are coming into those be more successful, and we can all sort of learn from each other and be more successful ourselves. And we're already getting shirts made and everything.
Nice. Dare I say that's
Yeah.
your favorite group of snakes?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It seems like over the years it's kind of fluctuated a little bit. I love corn snakes. That's mostly a nostalgia thing. I love my chondros. I took a pretty big step back in terms of like being in the chondro groups and stuff on Facebook because it was really sucking the fun out of it. Like it was just really exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the amount of money that's involved with those, a lot of people, it's more of people sort of flashing their wallets and look at how much money I can drop on a single animal kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like with the Ganyasoma, it's just they're such cool and interesting snakes. The rhinos, whether you think they should be in Ganyasoma or they don't, it's such a cool group of snakes, and I really want to get the sort of the Jansenine nailed down and figured out and try and be more successful with those. And I kind of decided that this was the year that I was going to put more focus on that group just because, I got a small like 3 egg clutch early last year for my pair of Jansenine, and those eggs did not make it. I don't know if they were really any good to begin with. Not 100% sure. And so it's like I'm on the right track. I just got to start putting in the time and effort into making them work. So we'll see that. And then Matt just sent me that pair of Persimmon, which there's not a lot of people in the States really doing much with. And so when he sent me those, it was like, okay, like this sort of seals the deal. Like this is a group I want to focus on. So.
Yeah.
Do you just like the activity of the rhinos? And
yeah, I mean they're always out, man. They're super curious. I have 3 adults and I've got 2 youngsters, and the adults, like, they're almost always out and about perching. My wife and daughter, they love them. There's one in particular, his name is Dutch, and he just hangs out all day, and like Ellie will go in and just open the doors and he'll just come out, and it's like really one of, besides Brettles, like the only species that I can trust her to be able to just go in and get it and it not just lose its shit. And they're super curious. Like when you handle them, they're not like, I don't get the vibe that they're freaking out or they're stressed or anything like that. The younger ones, it's a little different, but like the older animals, like it's 100%, they're just curious what's going on. They just want to check things out. They're looking for food, and just a ton of personality and very curious and interested in what's going on. If you're in the room, they're watching you and checking you out and seeing if you're bringing them any food, and super easy to keep, like crazy easy.
they're cooler species, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine stay at whatever the room is, and so I mean they've gotten into the the upper 60s on like our really cold nights, and even after eating, they seem like those cooler temps doesn't seem to affect them at all. They do great. So I think the only thing that's sort of the one detractor is just babies and getting those established. That seems to be sort of the one main and biggest hurdle for that. But as far as like a pet snake, like if you get one that's established, like I said earlier, I think you're gonna be hard pressed to find a more enjoyable species to have just for plain enjoyment. And good display animals, like Eric was saying. You set them up a nice display, like they're gonna be out and about all the time. Like,
yeah.
Unless they're in a shed cycle or something, you're gonna see them daily.
Do you find your Eric, carpets? Do you find carpets are really active and good display animals as well?
Yeah, to the point where I don't think that the people that breed carpets and try to sell carpets promote that enough. I think when you're talking about when you're talking about a snake that you want to see it, yeah, carpets. Maybe we had an influence on that for a while. I think when I got into the breeding side of things, I kept in a lot of racks and stuff, and I still do have stuff in racks because I'm slowly like moving it over to cages and stuff. But the difference in just watching them is just I have a diamond python that's upstairs in my living room, and just I could watch that thing for hours. And I think to the average pet keeper, that's kind of what they're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you have a sand bow and it's underneath the sand all the time, what's the point? If you have a ball python, and that could be part of like the setup, right? I mean, if you give it a hide, it's probably going to hide a lot. But if you're wanting a python, to me, they kind of fit the best of both worlds, where they got a little size on them to the where they're somewhat impressive, but they're not. Like I think short tails are like they seem bigger than they are, even though they're like 4 foot. But they seem like they're like these humongous snakes just because of their girth.
Big old land slugs.
Yeah, 100%. And they're just they're a python like that is just different. Some people, I think, if they're getting a python, they kind of want a python that it's got some size to it. They don't want like a small snake type of deal. But yeah, I don't know. I think they make great display. They're always out perching. They'll get under UV, under heat, under just hang out. So
How well do
I quite
your
enjoy.
carpets handle?
How do they handle?
Yeah.
I don't. I think like this whole. I guess the whole idea of like carpets being aggressive comes from when they're babies, and I just don't see that difference between. I've been bit by more ball pythons than I have carpet pythons. So,
No.
I mean, I've been bit. Usually, it's just my fault, my mistake type of deal. I do use a hook. I don't know. I don't know if that's needed or not needed, but it's just kind of how I've always done it. So I use a hook to get them out. But once they're in your hands, I think I have one carpet that's like just straight up, wants to kill you. And I think there is a little bit of something to like the whole idea of each snake is going to be different and how and in that type of thing. Like some snakes are going to be super aggressive or I don't even say aggressive, maybe nervous all the time.
Yeah.
But I guess like when I work with scrub pythons and then taking a step back to carpet pythons, they're kind of a walk in the park. But yeah, I don't know. I handle once they're out, once you have them, I have no issues with them.
All right. Do you notice any handleability differences between subspecies at all?
Um,
Like Justin said earlier that like Brettles are the number one pick. Is it just are they more handleable? Is that why? Or I know you're an IJ guy or a Pop One guy. So
yeah, I think it's probably comes down. So if I were to say which ones are the if that label comes from them being, let's say, snippy but nippy, bitey, jungles and Darwins. Darwins, I think, are that way just simply because the stock that we have in the U.S. is just so closely, it's so close to wild caught stock. Jungles, on the other hand, I don't know. I just think it's just in their nature. They come from that rainforest habitat. Anything that's going to be getting them is going to be coming from above, and you're coming over top of them. And I think once they learn that you're not going to hurt them, eat them, they kind of like let go. Oh, there you go. And they kind of chill out. But I think getting over that initial couple times of getting bit is kind of like so as far as the nicest ones that I've dealt with, I would say probably inlands. And as far as the most nippy ones, I would say Darwins.
okay.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. You're muted still, Smitty.
Said I hate getting bit still. Doesn't happen often, but I don't enjoy it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I go for not getting bit most of the time.
Yeah, try to do that.
I'm not like sticking my hand right on its face trying.
I think the worst bite I ever took was from a barnack. Yeah.
Oh man,
Ooh,
Yeah.
no thank you.
That was almost stitches type of bite.
they're so pretty though. Oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
gorgeous.
My time with scrubs came and went. That tandem bar was more than enough.
Well,
As they
now
do with
Wyman
most
has that,
people.
right? Wyman's daughter has your scrub, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he sent me a picture like right after they got it of her just holding it like it was nothing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like that thing was freaking horrible. I think it's changed since then. Like it is now gotten to the point to where he's like, yeah, this thing's a bit of a handful, but
They're just so turned on, you know. They're always turned
very.
on. Yeah. They're just ready to go. It must be a tough life in Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, yeah.
They're so damn accurate is the problem. Like
Oh yeah.
these things are the most accurate strikers I think I've ever dealt with.
I've thought about getting scrubs before, but again, then it's the retweet tick thing all over again for me because it's not even it's a huge snake, but it's definitely
Yeah,
a
but
snake.
Yeah,
Retic made of Velcro.
they're very deceptive though, right? Because like you know, I've dealt with 12-foot plus scrubs and they don't look that way when they're in a cage, if that makes sense, right? You
Yeah.
know, like when you're looking
Yeah.
at a retic or a berm or a rock python or something like that, you can see that snake is big. But like, I don't know. Same thing with Owen Pelly pythons, the same way, right? Because they're long and thin, right? They're so like when we were holding those babies that Gavin had, I couldn't understand how a baby snake is like 4 foot long. Like, what is going on here? Or you know, it was just so long. But
Just keeps going.
yeah,
That's kind of like the shape of a Amazon tree boa.
yes, very
Super
similar. Yeah.
long, skinny, arboreal.
And then the thing with scrubs is like they're always like perching, so they sort of have like multiple anchor points. So like when you're trying to get them out and you're dealing with there's just a lot. That's a lot. People get these high visions of grandeur, which I did too, where it's just like, oh, I'm gonna breed these things. Watch. It's just, yeah.
Seems like there was a point with scrubs where a lot of people got into them, and then it seems like after about a year or two, a lot of people started getting out of them.
Yep. That was the cycle. That like from the beginning of NPR, right? There was like a group like Blake Bauer was one, David Means was another, and there was a couple other people. Yasser at the time, he was doing scrubs too. But like there was this like Nick Mutton did them for a while, but you would have this group where they would come in and they would get some, and then they would realize about, and then yeah, it would you would soon just sell them on to the next guy, you know.
Not as sexy as you thought they'd be.
No, amazing snakes, but
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot to work with, especially when you're talking like Wyman was telling me like they know what's going on exactly. They sense every little thing.
Yep.
So
yes,
like,
every move.
He said his daughter has shown just that much fear one time, and now the snake knows it can make her jump, so it'll make her jump whenever it wants.
Yeah,
And that's yeah.
they're a heat-seeking missile that seems to go right for monkeys' heads.
Oh man,
Rhinos are still cooler.
yeah. I don't know. I'll let you know on that one.
They'll change your life.
I don't doubt it.
This year I'm planning to breed them for the first time. So
yeah, that's cool.
After talking to Rob and Terry Burwell and Matt, it was like, I think the female can pull it off. This is the male, so he's definitely old enough and big enough.
Female's a little bit bigger than that one, around the same
No, a little
size.
smaller. Rhinos
smaller. Yeah.
Male rhinos are bigger than females, which I thought was kind of interesting.
So they combat.
You definitely don't keep males together.
Yeah.
From what I've been told. I'm not gonna try it, but if you're gonna keep them together, keep males and females, or 2 females and a male. Because they can be surprisingly vicious to one another.
Do you
I
cohab
think
them?
that.
I don't yet. So when I put the female in with this male, I just moved him into a 2-foot cube. The female's going to go in and they'll be cohabbed.
Okay.
And then the percentum will go in the bio-G cages that they're in now. Where are you going, dude?
And then I got a dog making licky noises. That's great. Oh, well. Do you guys have any questions? I feel weird because I don't have my co-host, and usually it's like, hey, you got any extra questions here? Because I think I'm going to wrap it up. You guys got any questions for each other, me? Anything?
Podfather?
I don't think so.
Where do babies come from?
Well, let's see.
That's a tough question.
Yeah. Who knows anymore?
Really? That depends on who you ask. It is now a subjective question.
Yes.
Oh, well, where can people find you at, Eric?
Okay. Let's see. I guess if you want to follow me, I'm on Facebook. I don't really do the EB Morelia page all that much anymore. I probably will get that going again at some point. But if you want to find me, NPR Network is pretty much where you can find me. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff.
Right on. Justin?
You can find what we're doing at the Herpetoculture Network on all major podcast platforms, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Audible. I think we're on there. Amazon Podcast now is a thing. And then Palmetto Coast Exotics is my personal page as far as like breeding and what I'm keeping and stuff like that. And then we also have a YouTube channel for the network, which is like episodes, and then I periodically do videos related to stuff I'm keeping and whatnot, and a lot of chondro videos and stuff on there for anybody that has is wanting to get into chondros, and sort of I got a lot of the same questions a lot of the time, so I finally just started making videos sort of addressing those, and then if people asked, I just send the link and be like, check this out. If you have any questions afterward, hit me up. So check that out. That's the Herpetoculture Network as well. And that's it, I think.
Right on. For us, you can follow us at Herp Talk Radio on Instagram. At Herp Talk Radio herptalkradio@gmail.com is our email address, and that's really what we got right now. YouTube should be up by the time this is up, but that'll be next week.
Cool.
Awesome. Boom.